Bob and Linda have been happily together for several years and reminded people around them of the odd couple because of how differently they appeared to be. Bob was formal, structured, and organized, where Linda was more free-spirited. Bob was serious and Linda was silly. They feel they complement each other, appreciate each other's differences, and generally get along very well. Since Bob was the childhood best friend of Linda's older brother, they had known each other closely most of their lives. Bob spent a lot of time at Linda's home with their family as they grew up. Bob understood Linda's family to be quite different from his, but he appreciated the loud, seemingly fun dysfunction. There was frequent yelling, name-calling, and fighting, but the family seemed to be connected. One Friday evening, Bob and Linda enjoy a cocktail as they straighten up the house and prepare for the weekend. Bob notices Linda's looking all throughout the house for something, which she frequently does, and as she passes him in the dining room, she giggles and says, "I'm feeling that cocktail. I think my brain is barely functioning." Bob gives a laugh and quickly replies, "Oh, honey, that's just your baseline." They frequently joked about Linda's absent-mindedness since Bob was never bothered by it and found it to be somewhat a charming trait. This time was different, though. This comment stung Linda when she heard it. It instantly reminded her of being ridiculed as a child for being a forgetful person, made her feel bad about herself. Bob was surprised when Linda didn't giggle in response to his comment, but since he was passing her when he said it, he'd not had the opportunity to see her facial expression fall after he said it. Linda proceeded to the next room to fold laundry, and when Bob entered, he asked if she would like to watch the hockey game tonight, to which she replied a glum, "Sure." This alerted Bob since Linda was typically chipper. He turned to see her sad facial expression and was instantly confused about how her temperament had changed so quickly. He asked her what was wrong, and she explained that his comment had made her feel shameful about being absent-minded because of childhood experiences. This scenario happens quite frequently. One partner makes a personal joke about another partner who takes offense instead of finding humor. This is an instance of miscommunication and can push couples apart if they're unable to find ways to learn about each other and ways to communicate. Addressing this situation involves an accurate perception of each other, mindful listening, and feeling safe with self-disclosure. Learning how to incorporate these healthy communication behaviors into your relationship can mean the difference between this scenario becoming a fight or a conversation that strengthens your bond. You've heard it before, there's two sides to every story. That's because each person's immediate perception shapes their perspective. It's important to remember that each person's perception and thereby perspective is different. Since Linda giggled when she made her initial statement, Bob thought she would find humor in his retort. He perceived her to be in good spirits about being forgetful, so he made a joke in return. Linda perceived the retort as a jab at her shortcomings due to her negative self-concept, even though that's not something Bob does. Linda must give herself proper time to process the comment and recognize that Bob's never insulted her before or made her feel insecure about being forgetful. His comment only triggered emotions that had nothing to do with him. Bob's perception of the situation can feel like an attack when Linda takes offense to something he says. Instead of assuming the defensive position, he's mindful about listening to Linda to understand that she's not upset with him. Her feelings are coming from somewhere else. Listening to Linda explain her perception of the comment and how it triggered negative feelings should act as a salient conversation for Bob, meaning the message carries significance for him. Instead of acting defensively to avoid feeling shame himself, he listens to her explain that the comment unexpectedly upset her because of her childhood experiences. By mindfully listening to Linda, Bob understands Linda's feelings are not about him. They're about something she experienced growing up, which he can understand given their history. Bob can use this information to help Linda heal from childhood trauma instead of potentially adding to it by getting mad at her for being upset. Bob's body language during the act of mindful listening is extremely important. Instead of crossing arms or taking a defensive stance, Bob can hold Linda's hand, making her feel assured that he loves her and is supportive of her feelings. This partner responsiveness shows Linda that Bob is being empathetic, attentive, and cares about her perspective. Mindful listening allowed Bob to be a safe place for Linda to self-disclose. Each person in a relationship has core vulnerabilities or things they fear that interfere with their abilities to develop a close relationship with their partner. In this case, Linda and Bob both share a core vulnerability of shame. Linda's feeling shame in being absent-minded, and Bob's feeling shame for hurting Linda's feelings. Since Bob typically does not make Linda feel bad for her shortcomings, she does feel safe enough to tell him about her core vulnerability. This self-disclosure prevents each person's core vulnerability from interacting with each other and causing the situation to spiral out of control. Linda was able to address Bob's vulnerability by explaining she knows he would never hurt her feelings intentionally and that the hurt was not his fault. Bob is then able to put his vulnerability aside to allow Linda to self-disclose. Bob then supports Linda as she works to overcome her own core vulnerability. Bob and Linda have encountered a communication issue most relationships have experienced. One comment has the power to be taken out of context, invoke past emotions, or cause a series of arguments in which active listening is absent. This scenario could have ended in any of these ways. Linda might not have felt safe enough to self-disclose her childhood trauma and how it affected the situation. Then Bob could have resented Linda for getting upset about such a seemingly small issue. In a healthy relationship where core vulnerabilities can be shared with each other, they can communicate with each other successfully about themselves, sharing how they feel and helping each other manage these emotions. Bob and Linda should continue mindful listening, encouraging the self-disclosure of their feelings and vulnerabilities with each other. This will help them understand how their perceptions and perspectives differ to better support each other and grow as a couple.